You know, I used to say, I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to prepare you, but really, I'm just trying to scare the out of you.
Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
I'm David Leary.
And I'm Dawn Brolin.
Dawn Brolin. Woo! I'm so happy to be in your basically hometown here for Accountex USA. We're in Boston, home of all the sports teams I personally hate.
Yeah.
And usually I'm getting grief from you about how great these Boston teams are.
I've been really lenient on you thus far.
And this is why I've never invited you on the podcast until today.
Well, don't worry. The Patriots start their revenge on Sunday and just going for another, Super Bowl this year.
I hate Tom Brady.
I know you do. But the Buffalo Bills, they have a chance to participate this year. I mean, they're going to get uniforms and cleats. They'll probably be out there a little bit. Yeah.
This is the world.
This
is why I do a podcast with Blake and not you.
Fault. It's your fault that you are a Buffalo fan, not my fault. You made bad choices. It's not my fault.
So speaking of bad choices, the reason we have Dawn here today is Dawn is an expert in small business fraud. And when I say expert, you testify at courts and things, and you're seriously all about the small business fraud. And let's go from there. I don't know if you have a question, Blake. I mean, let's start with that, Blake. When you had small business clients, did you ever come across any fraudulent things?
Not my client, my dad. My dad was a consultant in real estate, and he had a practice with three partners, and they had an office manager who, over the course of a few years, stole $250,000.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Easy breezy.
They never got it back. I mean, she went to jail, but yeah.
Yeah, they don't typically save the money when they steal it and then return it upon discovery. Yeah. Typically, they got a new car, they're going on quite a few trips, or kids in private school, or, they're not stashing it, they're not putting it in cans in the backyard, which if you're going to steal, do that. If you're going to save it, put it in the backyard.
I feel like a lot of these fraud cases, it's one of those things that just spirals out of control. They weren't planning it. They didn't have an exit strategy because how did you think you were ever not going to get caught?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We all know the fraud triangle, which is the three pieces.
Don't. What is the fraud triangle?
You don't? Okay, well, it's a fraud triangle.
We are woefully ignorant.
Oh, good. Oh, this is like my clients.
We always have good ideas for committing frauds.
I know so many people who are ignorant, including an attorney that I'm going to go battle a week from Wednesday in court on a fraud case. So, which I love. I love doing that. I love humiliating those who think they're smarter than every other person in the universe when they're not. Especially lawyers.
We're on board with that.
I call them liars and accountants. But actually, so for the fraud triangle, what happens if you read the Report to the Nations, which is a great resource, if you've never heard of that, it's called the Report to the Nations. It's published by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and it comes out every year, and it's like a book. And I love it. It's my favorite book ever. And it really tells you the statistics around what's happening. But in the fraud triangle, what happens is people have, without internal controls, and of course, small businesses think that's impossible to have. And we're not a big corporation. We don't need internal controls, and they don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
So it's such an easy way for those who are involved where they have pressure. So what kind of pressure do they have? A bunch of different things. Either they have pressure to get their work done, and they're always at work 80 hours a week, and the boss is out of town, always traveling to Italy. But they've got all this pressure, and then they have opportunity because the small business doesn't have internal controls implemented or in place. And then the last thing, they can rationalize it. So they rationalize it and say, you know what? That guy's always in Italy, and I'm always here working for that guy, and I'm in charge of everything, and I only get paid $60,000 a year, and they're living the life of luxury. And typically, the people who are actually committing the fraud are first-time offenders. These are not criminals that are out to defraud small business.
The situation
in their life
itself.
Correct.
Okay, so we got three of them. You said opportunity, rationale. Well, that's the last one. What was the
opportunity, pressure, and rationalization.
Those three things. Okay.
And when that combination comes, that's like a hurricane, which we've just seen. Hurricanes are coming back because they're, it's time of year. But that's what happens. It's like the perfect storm where they've got this pressure at home. Maybe a spouse lost a job. Maybe a spouse passed away and now they're the only source of income and they got 6 kids. I mean, there's reasons anyone could give a reason why they would defraud somebody.
Your high school chemistry teacher who gets cancer and needs to pay for his treatment.
Literally.
There was no money in the high school system, so he could commit fraud there. He had to move on to selling meth.
Yeah.
Selling meth is not a bad idea, I guess.
It's probably a better idea.
That's more tax fraud than anything.
Okay.
But no, so that's what happens. And these small businesses are going out of business. And interestingly enough, there are statistics, which I'll be giving in my presentation, where payroll fraud takes 3 years to detect and an average of $150,000 per occurrence.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah.
Those numbers?
Yeah. So it takes 3 years, 36 months on average
To detect it.
to detect a payroll fraud. Now, to me, that's disgusting. And the reason is there's so many easy, affordable ways to have your payroll processed that there should never be a bookkeeper stealing payroll taxes. Like that should not even be a thing.
Right.
But it is.
But a lot of businesses,
Yeah.
we tend to forget this, I think, living in the cloud accounting podcast world, with these automated payroll providers, like a lot of businesses are still cutting paper payroll checks.
Right. Those in and of themselves is a whole nother situation, right? So
Just checks.
what's really great is, well, it's great for me, I guess, as there's so many ways that these people are stealing. They're time stealing. Matt Rissel's the king of that. Like he solved for that problem for his small business. And time doesn't matter. Well, guess what? If people are stealing time, which people do, and you multiply that out, that's costing a small business owner a fortune. And I can tell you as a small business owner myself, having someone steal from me after the sacrifices, listen, everyone thinks you're in business, you got all this flexibility of all this money, and they have this big like vision of what we all look like, quote unquote, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, we've sacrificed everything. We've invested in our education and all these things. And so you hire an employee and they're in a situation where, maybe the baby is sick. And I mean, whose heart doesn't stretch for that? But instead of talking about it or bringing it to attention, they feel like I'm under so much pressure. I've got to take care of my baby because trust me, your baby comes way before me as your boss. I get that. But what ends up happening is they do that rationalization and say, well, you know what? They have plenty of money. I don't have any money and I need it for my baby. And guess what? They're going to rationalize that and they're going to steal. It'll be the first time ever. And with the payroll taxes, it's a compounding issue.
So,
right?
sorry, did you bring up payroll because that's the most common, or is it like?
Or is it just the most preventable? It's like easy to.
Yeah, I think it's the most preventable
And
out of all of them.
And you said 36 months to detect, and how on average?
Average 150,000. And if you think about it, if it takes 3 years, they're not saving the payroll tax money. What ends up happening is the IRS does not care. Neither does the state, neither does unemployment. They don't care that the bookkeeper stole your money. You are a fiduciary to your employees and you are the boss of your company. And if the bookkeeper steals the money, you're still on the hook.
And the business owners are personally on the hook.
You bet.
For the payroll, or whoever was also responsible for the payroll, right?
Right. And and there's different, obviously, if you can prove control of the bookkeeper 100%, then the bookkeeper's, there's a lot of
I've heard
pieces.
about outside accountants actually who run payroll getting held accountable, getting on the hook for those payroll taxes.
Absolutely.
That didn't get paid. Yeah.
And I think that's part of like this awareness that I'm trying to bring to people about fraud, that it's not, and this is something that I talk about all the time, all the applications that we see at all of our shows, those applications are great. Yes, they're efficient. Yes, they're all of those things, but that's not the primary reason why we should be implementing them with clients. And I think that's where we as the trusted advisors are missing it. I think we're so wrapped up in efficiency and, bank feeds. And so you don't even really have to do anything. Well, that's not what it was. That's not what it's meant for. It's not meant to not hand key transactions. It's meant to be an internal control for someone to look at financial records and say, why do I have so much in marketing? They're cutting themselves a $5,000 check. And if you're a company that spends a lot of money in advertising, you're not going to think $30,000 a year is a big deal. So, that's one of my biggest things is the awareness that we as the trusted advisors, it has to start with us, right? And if we ourselves aren't cloud accounting for ourselves, how can we possibly, with an ethical attitude and appearance, promote that to our clients?
David, I'm sure you have lots of questions. I have lots of questions about, I've never looked for fraud, right? As an outsourced accountant, bookkeeper, sometimes I've spotted it, right? Found it or found iffy situations. How can I make that part of what I do for my clients?
So great. That's such a great question because I'm actually going to cover that in my presentation today, which is fun. But what we can do is we can start with one client at a time. And I think people, sometimes as we find this maybe new service, value add that we can give to our clients, which is really one of the most important ones, is to protect them, is we can take one client that we know that we work with often, maybe they're even on a value billing, and you take that one client and say, okay, what do they do? Do they have a cash register? Do they have payroll? Do they have files in their office that are in an unlocked desk or whatever? Like even just taking a simple evaluation of one client and say, okay, let me look and see where are the areas that they could be at risk of even just basic. Go through pick 5 things and say, okay, payroll, that seems to be pretty nailed down. Okay, that's good. But they've got the payroll documents in a drawer that anyone can grab and have identity theft. So you could do a simple evaluation of one client and say, hey, I went to a conference and I'm starting to really pay attention to how the technology changes can be a threat for you. It may not be an improvement. So how can we implement some internal controls? Because I'm concerned about these 5 areas of your business. What do you think about that? Hand them the report to the nations, like actually print it and hand it to them. I'll let them not really, I'm all about the cloud too. But whatever you got to do.
Kill some trees.
Shake them. I used to say, I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to prepare you, but really I'm just trying to scare the shit out of you. Okay? Because you don't listen when I'm just trying to prepare you. Oh, okay, great. Thanks. That's nice. No, guess what? I'm going to court a week from Wednesday and I'm going to testify in a divorce case, which who would think there's fraud in a divorce case? Guess where there's fraud? An affidavit of financial means. Do you know what that is? That's one spouse has to provide their financial, how do they make money? Mm-hmm. And the other spouse has to do the same thing, right? And when it gets down to it, if you have a small business owner who runs a salon, for instance. So if there's a person running a salon, is their Schedule C accurate? Why do they say they don't make any money? Okay. Why do they show $30,000 profit on their Schedule C when there's no accounting system? So now you go and you start digging into bank statements and you look at the copies of the deposit slips, which are awesome because at this particular bank, you have to sign them when you do the deposit. So we know exactly who made cash deposits, who made check deposits and did less cash received, which you're not supposed to even do with a business bank account, right? And so you just start to look and you say, oh my goodness, like there's fraud everywhere and it's happening. And that's a simple example. But this other, the husband or whatever, he's making 150 G's a year and she's saying he's making 150 and I'm making 30. Well, he's like, no, you make more than that because you make 30. So now guess what? We've got structuring when it comes to the cash deposits, potentially. We have tax fraud, under reporting of gross income, tax loss to the government. We have sales tax issues, sales tax fraud.
It's just
all in one case. And it just falls. I tried to scare the crap out of this chick in my deposition and she was stone cold. And I was like, wow, I don't know if I've ever met anyone as dumb as you because I'm going to tear you apart in court. You and your attorney, I'm going to annihilate you in front of the judge. It's so simple. Because guess what? 1 + 1 is 1. We're not economists and not weather people. We get paid for the facts, not for a guess.
Wait, did you say 1 + 1 is 1?
No, 1 + 1 is 2. I might have said 1 + 1 is 1, but that's an economist.
Sorry, just okay.
I apologize if that's what I said.
I was trying to work out in my head. I was like, wait, gotcha.
We fell for that.
Yeah.
So every day there's a news article that comes up. Like,
absolutely.
Constantly, some bookkeeper did something or there's a fraudulent, and it always seems like it gets discovered on accident. Like, oh, that person finally took a vacation, or like how, like, is there ways like you can actually create a scenario in your small business to possibly surface fraud by like little hacks, right? Like making changing rules. Like, can you speak to that? Yeah.
And that's one thing when you get to a company that's like 10, 15, 20 employees, that's a small business that's growing, right? They're still considered in the world of our world, they call them small business, which is relative in my opinion. But, you've got 10 employees and you have one bookkeeper and maybe one AR person, for example. There could be coercion there where the two of them are working to get together and they're figuring out how the AR person's going to send invoices. And then when the check comes in, the bookkeeper will delete the invoice from the system. They'll take the check and deposit it in their bank account. So especially when there's multiple roles where there's 5 people in the accounting department and 2 people, team up and, I don't know, maybe they go out and drink together at night or something. And they've got this scheme where, I really want to go on a trip. Let's just, we'll do one invoice and leads to 2. 3, 4. And then it becomes a pattern. Your question is a great question. Do you want to create that culture of, I'm trying to frame my employees, would be something I think a business owner would think about.
Yeah.
When in fact, for me, it's more of let's examine this one internal control and see where there may be risk. Okay, do you ever open your mail? Like, do you ever go online and check your bank and say, well, no, I got it. They do all that stuff. Have you ever signed a payroll check? Well, no, I just sign checks and hand them to the bookkeeper and she pays the bills. I've seen that. And they just hand them over. I have a fraud case right now in South Chicago, which is really safe. A business owner has been kind of pushed out, a partner has been kind of pushed out, and they're using his signature stamp. Well, back in, I think it was February 18th or something of 2017, there was an email that went out from not him, but his partner who said, don't use this guy's signature stamp without his approval. And so we went in there, I took everything off of computers that I could find. I took the whole Outlook file from forever and we restored it. And we found the email that gave that direction. So now everybody's they delete it or no one remembers that it really happened. So we went and we searched for it and we found it. Well, that's one of the complaints and that's what you do. You look at the complaint, like what are the issues that we're bringing up? And then you get the facts to back it up. And that was just one example, but it's just crazy what people are doing. And the technology is allowing them to do it easier, to be honest with you. That's why you need internal controls, approval processes and things things like that.
Yeah, because people think, oh, I'm going to get rid of the paper checks. And that offers you, yes, it solves one problem, but then it creates a whole host of others, which is now you've got people accessing online banking, perhaps.
Exactly.
Like business owners, I saw business owners in my practice who'd give the employee full access into their online banking so they could do bill pay.
Yeah, their own login.
Yeah.
I have clients, I have to say to them, I love it when you go out, they have those videos where you go out and you say, hey, what's your password to your email? And they tell it to them on the Facebook Live or whatever it is.
We should actually do that here, to our accounts. We should test them once.
Some people.
We'll go walk around with our microphones, be
really
what's your
cool.
password? And see if it just spits it out to us.
Just say, oh, hey,
We're security researchers.
Do you listen to us on Google Podcasts? What's your Google password? And just see if they give it to you. You'll probably get I don't know.
We talked about a study. Some researchers did this.
The chocolate.
Yeah,
the chocolate
it was
study.
like a German university, and the researchers there just stood outside wearing the logo of the university and asked people for their university logins in exchange for chocolate. And 40% of the students gave passwords away.
It's no, but here's what you're going to find. You're going to find one of a few things, right? Hey, what's your Google password? You know what? I have no idea, but I have a notebook with all my passwords in it. Let me get that out of my backpack. Right. That's going to be one answer.
Oh, man.
And then you're going to have another answer where, okay, I my passwords, okay, so I always use my last name and birthday or whatever. They're going to say I use this password for everything. But you'll see people here, and if you do it, and I ask these people, where do you hold your passwords? Where do you hold your passwords?
Most of them, it's going to be like an Excel file.
In a notebook, or it's in an Excel file, or it's on my desk, a sticky note on my monitor. What? All of my passwords are in Password Keeper or LastPass. And I have them because I never remember my passwords. And I'm not going to have them on paper. I have them in my notes on my phone. Are you kidding me? Oh, that's nice and secure.
Yeah, very secure. Very secure.
And they're entering them into information systems
Well, you could just put them in your email and email them to yourself.
Well, yeah, and then you have a send item. But you could pin it to the top. Here are all my passwords.
This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by Right Networks. In a perfect world, everyone would have 100% of their clients on a cloud-based accounting system using cloud-based apps. But the world isn't perfect, and clients have a wide range of needs. And for some, this means using desktop-based software. That's where Right Networks comes in. Right Networks is your 100% accounting-focused desktop in the cloud that also includes an ecosystem of over 250 connected apps. As you and your clients take the journey to the cloud, Right Networks will be at your side, innovating the best ways to leverage the true cloud future by investing heavily in cloud apps like Transaction Pro and AutoFi. They've created an always-on environment that supports 24/7 data transfer. Right Networks also offers no scheduled downtime for maintenance or application updates and meets the industry's highest security standards. To join the more than 50,000 firms that use Right Networks daily with their clients, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/RNCloud. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/RNCLOUD. And be sure to visit the Right Networks booth in San Jose at QuickBooks Connect 2019.
I want to before we go, I really want to hear some good horror stories or some good case studies. What's your favorite? I mean, it's not a good thing or anything, but give us a really juicy one, top of mind.
The creative, when these people do something and it's so genius. Those are the ones I love. I'm this is the smartest person in the world.
Yeah. So we're talking about the guy who was using the IRS to launder money. He was paying the payroll taxes, but on the check he would write his own social.
Right, and he was paying his estimated payments essentially,
and then getting refunds.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
But so because it's annoying to me when people aren't even somewhat clever. They're just taking money, writing checks to themselves. I'm this is stupid. So
yeah.
Anyway,
well, the problem is, they don't realize that when they actually document something, when they sign something or write something or do something, it's documented. If it was kind of a negotiation like Bitcoin, that's a whole nother thing. But I'll tell you, this is a good one. This is a good case I did about a year ago. And it was a husband and wife who became ex-husband and wife because he threw her down the stairs. So that happens. He went to jail for 7 years. Okay. While he's in jail, the ex-wife runs his landscaping business. So she's running her own landscaping business and running his landscaping business. Okay.
And they previously had one together, or
they previously had one together, but then they got, he threw her down the stairs, and he was like, well, I'm going to have my own landscaping business because you threw me down the stairs or whatever. So she actually does the accounting. She's sending the crew out. She's cutting the checks. She's doing all this stuff. So now it comes to me. So she wants more child support, but he's been in jail. So he makes, probably 1 cent an hour or whatever. But she's running his business, lucrative, cash all over the place. You know, you mow a lawn, you get $50, you put it in your pocket, and you walk away. That's not being reported, but that's a whole separate issue. So she wants child support. So they hired me to go in and do a forensic analysis of his business account and her business account. And so we were able to very easily show where she would pay herself, because she wrote a check out to herself and wrote whatever on it. You could see she would pay for the subcontractors that were doing work for her out of his business, and all of these things that I could tell what was going on. And then when you go in and look at that, and it's so easy to pick it up. You know, if you make a check out to yourself, you gave yourself money. What was it for? Well, guess what? If she put on there subcontract labor for herself, like doing accounting work and bookkeeping, and she paid herself, did you claim that on your tax return? So we pull the tax return. We say, okay, well, did you report this? Well, no, I was paying myself from my husband's business. Yeah, that's called income. And the best part about the story is that she represented herself in court.
Oh, no.
And I went to court and I'm on the stand and, you know, she's asking me just questions and I'm just like, are you serious? And the judge got his hand on his head. His head on his hand or whatever. And he's like, you can't object to that answer, miss, and all this other stuff. And he's just like rolling his eyes at me. I'm like, no kidding. How do you think I feel? I have to answer dumb questions. And so that was kind of a good
hearings. Like, could Blake and I show up and sit in the back as press and watch one of these hearings?
Oh, definitely. Those are public cases. Cases are public, man. I'll let you know where I'm going on the 18th. You can come visit. You can come and watch how I rock and roll, because I'm going to tear that one apart. And it's fun. You know, I do depositions and I create an expert report with, you know, what I'm relying on, the facts and figures. And so this one case that I'm going to be at, I'll pull the sentencing guidelines from the IRS pubs. I'll pull they have internal revenue manuals that they follow when they do audit. And so I specifically go to those businesses that are primarily cash type businesses, which hair salons are, you know, famous for that, if you will. Not that they don't accept other things. Everybody really accepts credit cards, but what about the cash? You know, you're still doing, everybody, you know, you go in to get your nails done, they say cash, tips and cash only. Well, why do you think they're doing that? I mean, come on.
Hey, 20% off if you pay cash.
Yeah. I mean, come on. So anyway, it's kind of fun stuff. And, you know, I don't remember the last time I couldn't find something wrong. Partners stealing from partners is so easy. You know, okay. Oh, you didn't have a company trip to the Bahamas? Oh, no. Oh, there's four tickets? Oh, I see. Are these your kids? Because on the front of your tax return, it shows they're your dependents. Oh, are they working in your business? Oh, they're 4 and 5. Oh, this is not really working out well for you.
Assuming I can't employ my 4-year-old son.
Oh boy, don't even get me started on a particular speaker at a particular conference who was promoting strategic tax deductions that was extremely inappropriate. And we could talk about that offline, but people are telling people to do that. And those people are going to get caught, because if I hear it, I'm reporting them. I will have none of someone, a professional, telling other professionals that this is okay. You cannot write off your swimming pool. Okay, people? I don't care if you bring your clients over or your customers or your employees or whatever. That's not a write-off. You can't call that, you know, part of your home office, people. It's just not a thing. Sorry, David. You're going to have to amend your returns.
So I record the podcast in my closet, and all my wife's clothes are in there, and they act as a sound barrier. Like, can I just buy her new clothes?
Of course.
It's a business expense?
Yeah, it's a business expense. It's part of your noise buffering system. Yeah. Of course. Absolutely. Listen, I use my dogs. For like their bark, for some of my, you know, recordings that I do. So I pay the dogs. Well, they can't go to the bank. They've got little legs. So of course I'm going to, you know, pay them and deduct it as part of my voiceover career.
I like that.
Just stupid.
It's a good one.
So funny.
So Dawn, you're super excited about this. Like feels like it's the dream for you. Like you found your niche in all the accounting directions you could go. Like this is the one for you. Like you're like a detective. You're like a cop. Like you get to kick people's ass.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. For me, it's like I get the hairs on my arms, which I have hair on my arms. That'd be first observant thing for you, David. But so I do have hair on my arms. And so whenever I get a call for a new case, my hair stands straight up and I get giggly and I grab the nearest eye black that I can find and I wipe it on my eyes and I put my bulletproof vest on and I put my belt on and off I go, because I'm like, okay, someone stole from someone else. I'm not okay with that. And I love it so much that I'll put everything I can. You have to be creative as a forensic accountant, right?
Yeah.
And you have to think outside the box and think of how can I back into these facts? And so I come up with crazy things like I need your schedule for a hair salon. I want to see your schedule because I want to see how many appointments you had that day and what deposits went in. And so you only had 3 credit card transactions, but you had 8 clients and you're only showing that you had 5. Mm-hmm. Where are the other 3? People just don't get that connection.
You're just reconciling it. That's
It's
all
simple.
you're doing.
And it's not about really doing accounting in some ways. It's just there's something that doesn't make sense
One
here.
and one equals one.
1 and 1 equals 1 to them, but 1 and 1 equals 2 to me. So
I have some questions on the whole, because you're a certified fraud examiner, and obviously you're telling us you're going to different states to testify in court. Like, is there some sort of licensure that carries from state to state? Like, how does the logistics of being in your profession work?
as far as, going across state lines and whatever, being a certified fraud examiner, you're just a certified fraud examiner. Now, obviously a CPA, that those kind of rules run a little different if there's reciprocation between the states and things like that. But going in as a certified fraud examiner and saying, okay, I'm testifying in court, there's no parameters around that.
What does it take to become one?
Well, so you go, again, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, they're based in Texas. They're wonderful. You take their course, you can either take their course in self-study or you can go and do it in person. And then you take 4 tests, 4 exams. And what I found, so I went to DC and I went for 4 days and I sat in class all day. They brought FBI agents in. I was like, can we do this again?
You lost your mind.
I lost my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm such a nerd.
The accountants who carry guns, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, if I can't be a cop, like a real police officer, I mean, I wish somebody had told me I would have went in the FBI or CIA or something like that. I had no guidance for that. But
she's deep undercover.
I'm hardcore. Yeah.
Somebody's like, hey, you should be an accountant. It's great.
Really? Let's do it. And that's why I have a Jeep Wrangler. I just got to shade the windows a little bit more. They need to be a little darker. I put on my glasses and sometimes I just put a suit coat on and I have shorts on to make it look like I'm in the Secret Service.
Big binoculars? Big
I
old
do.
ones?
And I have the earpiece thing and everything. I got all that stuff rolling with Brolin. So, but no, it's like, so you can go take the test and then you become a certified. And there are requirements. So if you go to the acfe.org, there is a point system. So you have to have a certain number of points between education, between experience. You have to get letters of recommendation that you've done casework. So it's similar to the CPA where you have to have the 2 years experience and all that stuff. A little less heavy than obviously the CPA, which is insane, that whole thing. But so being a certified fraud examiner is, for me, really changed things because I learned a lot of strategies through that class and things that I already knew as an accountant, but looking at it at a totally different angle. Because there's obviously, as a tax preparer, you're preparing taxes based on things your client has given you, and that's the best we can do. They don't let us audit their books before we prepare a tax return. But at the same time, because I deal with IRS criminal and civil investigation and all these other things, as a preparer, it's made me change the way I approach a tax return and knowing the fraud that's out there and that kind of stuff. And I look at the comparatives for the small businesses and say, well, why is this so high this year? Like, I don't just prepare the return and say, oh, you owe this much money or you're getting this refund. I look at the Schedule Cs and I'm like, wait a minute, this is really off. Why was your revenue so much lower? Like, what happened? And so I become a little more inquisitive. Not that I have to, but I do because I want to be more diligent. The last thing I want is one of my tax returns to get audited and I screwed it up, or, I at least didn't add up the deposits, which even that is, you want to do a due diligence, add the deposits and see if it matches gross revenue. And that doesn't even matter because in this case that I'm working on now, she took checks to the bank and then took cash out of the deposit and deposited what she wanted. So if you just added deposits, you'd think she made X when really, and if you look at the deposit slips, it's way more than X. So it's just a whole different mindset and it's a new level of paranoia. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Well, I love it. And it's been so great talking to you, but you got to go do your session.
I got to go teach to you guys because I think you're the only ones left. So I'll be talking to myself and I'll just let you listen.
We're going to come listen. So Dawn, if people want to get in touch with you online, where's the best place for them to do that? I'm very active on Twitter. So at Dawn Brolin is a really good way to just catch up on what I'm posting. LinkedIn, I try to get relevant fraud content out there as much as possible. So I think Twitter is probably the best. That's where I live mostly. And I enjoy that. So I'm building this fight against fraud, and I've got the fightagainstfraud.com and the fraudcast that Cloud Accounting and I are going to talk about and coming up here in the future because because we need to get the word out. Our small business owners are in danger. They really are. And if people don't start taking that seriously, we're going to lose those small business owners and we're going to have a bigger problem in the United States than we have ever had before because we do carry the country. I love that mission. And as always, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Blake T. Oliver. And I'm at David Leary. Dawn, thanks so much. I love you guys. Thank you. I'm so proud of you. And if you want, I know you held in all these cuss words to be very professional. If you want to just rattle them off now, we'll just beep them. I love you guys. This is unbelievable. Oh, sorry. That's absolutely unprofessional. But they said, you know what? Got a whole bunch of tards around here. So we've got to be real careful about what we're saying. And they're accountants. Dumb as fuck. Tards, douche. My favorite one is douche canoe. If you don't know douche canoe, that's a new one. That's a good one. I saw it on Bachelorette. Such a good word. So anyway, bleepity bleep bleep bleep. Podcast out. And that's out. Was that loud? Did I say the words loud?